Welcome back to Just Between Us. This is the Couch Show. So this week, this was a topic inspired by an email where I read the email, I'll be honest, a couple months ago.
Wow.
But I think it was something about, maybe a month ago. It was something about, and this is something I've thought about too, how there tends to be this thing of either events or like businesses or like communities that are for women and non-binary people.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm wondering how you feel about that.
If it's your first time visiting the channel, I'm a trans masculine person. I think sometimes when people say this is for women and non-binary people, they're thinking of non-binary people as women light or women plus, and they're not considering, like, oftentimes my thought process for this is that it is exclusionary to like assigned male at birth non-binary people, because this is my opinion, because I feel like you're not thinking of those people. Like, you're like, oh, it's a space for women and non-binary people, but then if a like AMAB non-binary person showed up, you would be confused. Some of the people that run it, I think there is this weird thing of lumping non-binary people in because you're seeing them as women in some way. And it comes back to too when people will go, oh, her pronouns are they, she uses they, you know what I mean? Like, it's this thing, it like clearly shows that you like view you when you think of someone who uses they them, you think of a like an AFAB person, assigned female at birth person, who is presenting androgynously, because that makes sense to you. But then, what's interesting to me is that the whole thing of like androgyny is then look masculine. So when you're like gender neutral clothes, it's like men's clothes. You never like kind of do like, oh, gender neutral and it's the way Harry Styles dresses. You assign that as he's dressing femme. So I think there's this like weird thing that is like thinks that it's doing something or being progressive when it's kind of just, again, being gender essentialist. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. Because I feel like there's even places where it will be like women, non-binary, and trans mask people.
So that's a hard thing, yeah.
Which is like, what?
I know, that's a tough thing. Like, I used to go to an event that was like that, and largely it was because some of the trans mask people that were there had been going for years with their partners, and nobody wanted to kick out our friends. So I think there is some stuff about that. But I also think, there's a hardcore level of like trans men are men. They are men. And then there's people who have different opinions where they're like, I am a trans masculine person, but I think that I feel more comfortable in these spaces and I feel like I'm maybe a more fluid person, or I'm even coming down to individual trans people. I have a friend who maybe when this comes out, our podcast will already be out, but my friend River Butcher, who I'm doing a trans mask podcast with, I often will say when we talk, when he and I have like our deep friend discussions, I'll say, well, when I was a girl. And River will say, I was never a girl. So River will be like, oh, I'll be like, well, before you transitioned when you were a woman. And River's like, I was never a woman. Whereas I don't feel that way. I feel like I was. I have another trans friend who I just spoke to, a trans mask friend, who was like, I still more so feel identified with women, even though like I'm, I understand that I'm a guy. So it's like very individualized. It's very specific to the person. So that's why you can't really have these catch-all spaces, I think. Because I don't know, I don't want to tell other trans guys that you can't go to these spaces with your friends or that you feel comfortable with. And then there are other trans guys who would be really insulted by that and would say, well, I want to be included with men. Like, period, full stop. So it's like it's not like a monolithic issue,
So how do you feel like this kind of stuff in communities should be handled? Like, do you think that like there's still room for there to be like women spaces?
Yeah.
Or like men's spaces? Or how do you feel about it in general?
I don't know. I'm still so new, and I feel like there's so many things that are really like gender is really important to people, and so there are things like where all kinds of women want to be at a women only event, or
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of men want to be at a men only event. And I think it comes down to we don't really talk about the difference between like gay trans guys and straight trans guys, or lesbian trans women and straight trans women. Those are delineations too. Do a lot of lesbian trans women want to go to lesbian events? A lot of straight trans guys want to be, going to like straight dating events or straight whatever. And then like gay trans guys want to be out in West Hollywood. Like it's kind of this thing that I'm learning, that there's even like a bit of a difference between a gay or bi trans guy and like a trans guy who identifies as a straight guy. There's experiences in common, but they're not the same. It's all very fluid, and my friend who's a trans lesbian has a completely different experience than other people we know who are straight trans women.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should just go wherever you feel comfortable, and for some people that's nowhere, and I get that. But I don't know. I've had thoughts. There's a dance party that's for queer women that I used to go to all the time, that I haven't been since I transitioned, and I don't know about going. People want to go because I'm going to Janet Jackson with some friends, and they want to go to it afterwards. They're all women, queer women, and it's my birthday. It's a party where you get in for free if it's your like zodiac sign, and it's Gemini season, so I could go. But like, what is it going to be like? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to be wanted there? And my boyfriend has a completely different experience because he quote unquote passes, and so, like, I could go there and they could be like, "Yeah, that's a queer person," versus like he could go there. I mean, and they could be like, "Why is this guy here?" Like we were at an event talking to a trans woman, me and him, and she and I were talking and like kind of leaving him. She was kind of leaving him out, and then he said something about being trans, and she was like, "Oh."
Mm-hmm.
He has like a different
Yeah.
experience where he feels, sometimes erased. So it's just this very complicated sort of thing where it's like comes down to like where you feel comfortable.
And what about for people like who are trying to plan these things? Like, what do you feel like they should keep in mind?
I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I think people are maybe they make it unnecessarily complicated in other ways. Like I was in a restaurant in Palm Springs, and the bathrooms said female identifying and male identifying on the doors, and we were making fun of it because we were like, just say men or women, just say all gender.
Yeah.
What the fuck is female identifying bathroom? Like
But then
it's
where do non-binary people
where do you
go?
go? It's just like it's
Yeah.
just kind of like using the language or overusing the language in order to seem good without actually asking any of the people.
Mm-hmm.
I took a picture of the bathroom. Like I'll put it up here. I'll put it up because it was the funniest thing.
And then it's like non-binary people just like
Shit on the
pee in the
floor.
hall.
Yeah,
Like I don't
pee on the
know.
floor. Yeah, exactly.
I have like one more question, which is like, when do you feel like non-binary people are like the most erased or like
Hmm.
overlooked, and that like people can like understand, you know, like
Yeah.
a straight transition
Mm-hmm.
from female to male or male to
Mm-hmm.
female, but they like really struggle with what to do with non-binary people in their minds.
Definitely. That's part of why I sometimes use he, because I know that they them is less likely to get used. Although if I go hard to he and people use they, we've reached the middle. I do think that those are the people that are used as like scare tactics more. Is like, they can understand, well, of course you'd want to pass, of course you'd want to, and there's these great shirts that say, I don't want to look or be cis. The goal is not to pass as one or the other. Like the
Mm,
goal is to sort of expand the meaning or look of gender, which is why I don't know. They don't need my advocacy, but I get very protective of AMAB non-binary people because I think that that is like one of the most erased groups. And also, if you are an AMAB non-binary people person and you feel erased, my DMs are open, and I'm here for you.
in many ways. Well, should we have something funny for before the song?
I'm sorry, what?
Well, we didn't have a funny bit for before the song. It's so hard to want to be funny because it's something I can't control and I can't contain.
But you do control it.
But I can't contain it.